Hello everyone, welcome to week 2 in COM 209, Intrapersonal Communication. I will make myself visible here. Hello, there I am, hi. Coming to you from my office here on a Saturday morning, so I might be a little bit loopy. I am here at the school all by myself and it's a little bit creepy, I'm not going to lie. But it's a good environment for me to dive in with you over the next few minutes about locating intrapersonal communication. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to build off the material we did in week 1. So what we're going to do now is dive into a discussion where we're going to kind of talk about what intrapersonal communication is, what it does, what it isn't, as well as part of this discussion. So this is just really an exploration of kind of the basics of really what we're dealing with when we're dealing with intrapersonal communication. So in week 1, what we did was we discussed the question present in the statement, one cannot not communicate. And one of the things that we said from last week was that we're going to work with the idea that we are always communicating. And I think that that's an important idea to carry with us as we move forward in our study here. So remember that we are viewing this as that we are always communicating. And then right at the end of our time last time, we said that, and I'll make myself go away so you can see this whole definition here, okay? So we're approaching communication as the symbolic process whereby reality, it's a little r, is produced, maintained, repaired, and transformed. And so really what we're saying here is that there is more at stake, there is more going on when we are dealing with communication than just the sending and receiving of a message. And it's this idea that we are always communicating and that we are dealing with reality whenever we communicate that is going to lead us into what we need to do now. And so now where we're going to be is right here. We're now ready to explore how we are constantly producing, maintaining, repairing, and transforming our reality within ourselves via intrapersonal communication. Now that might sound a little weird when you really think about it, but the truth is we do. If we manage the realities outside of ourselves in our relationships with our significant others, our family members, our co-workers, with our communication, we also manage it within ourselves. And so I really would like you to think about this. And in fact, this is one of the questions that you should be exploring in your first discussion board this week. The question being, if you take it seriously that we are dealing with reality whenever we communicate, what does that mean when you communicate with yourself? And so make sure you're really thinking about that and applying it to yourself. I think it's a very valuable thing to do. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to now move forward, and I'm going to have to kind of use metaphor for us to figure out where we're at. So here's what's going to happen here. I titled this set of material "Locating Intrapersonal Communication." So why locating? Why not just defining? Why not something else? Okay. The reason being is because when we're talking about intrapersonal communication, it looks more like locating something, and I'm going to walk you through how that actually works out. Rather than just pinning it down by way of definition, there will be definitions. We will look at ways that it's viewed and things like that. But really, what I want to do is try to locate intrapersonal communication. And so here's really what I mean. So it is tempting to just define it this way. It is tempting to just say, well, intrapersonal communication is just communication within an individual, and interpersonal communication is just between two people. There you go. And while something like this gives us a basic grid to work from, it's not really enough to actually lead us into a good understanding of what intrapersonal communication is. So this is why I'm using the term locating. And so let me engage a map metaphor to let you know what I'm talking about here. So here is a colorful map of the United States. And so while it's tempting to just say intrapersonal communication is communicating with ourselves, because technically that is accurate. Technically that is what is going on It's more complex than that. And so saying that communicating with ourselves is intrapersonal communication is like saying the state of Rhode Island is in the United States. It gives a general idea of where it's at, but it doesn't fully locate Rhode Island. Okay? So, now, by the way, we're not saying Rhode Island is lost. Some people would think, well, trying to locate something, you're not sure where, you think it's lost. No, it's not that it's lost. We know it's there somewhere. We just have to narrow down where it's at, okay? Narrowing it down doesn't fully define it, but it lets us know really where it's at in the scheme of things. And that's what we want to do with intrapersonal, because it is very important for me to say, okay, if I'm locating Rhode Island, well, is it over here on the West Coast? Is it down here somewhere in the Southwest? Is it over here in the Midwest? Is it on the East? And it's actually on the East. I think we probably know that it's over here on the East. And so one of the things that that locating this will do for us is, first of all, it gives us a much more localized view of where it's at. We know it's not west. We know it's not southwest. We know it's on the east. And by the way, oh, that's not what I wanted it to do. Go back. My stuff is not letting me zoom in. There's a way to zoom in. Here it is. Check this out. So Rhode Island is actually going to be right up here. See, it's this little yellow guy right here. There's Providence, Rhode Island. It's this little bitty yellow thing right there. so that's where that's at. So to locate it, what we did was, as we said, it's in the United States. It's not west or southwest or north. It is northeast. Okay? But then that only gives us a pretty general location of it. I mean, look at all the stuff that's over here in the northeast. That's a crowded, large place. So we're going to go even more in depth, and to really locate it and really understand it, you kind of have to go there. And so that's what we're going to do. So moving forward, I have to click out of this. There we go. There we go. So to help us locate intrapersonal communication more specifically, rather than just saying it's communication within an individual, and I'm going to come back, hello again, instead of just saying it's just communication within an individual, let's even go further. So first of all, communication is usually viewed as transactional, where the sender and a receiver, where they're going to exchange messages, and the goal is actually shared meaning. You've probably talked about this in your other communication classes. In fact, if you take a look at this, this is a very common communication model. I actually got this from the National Communication Association at natcom.org. It is the sort of national association for us communication people. And this circular type of or oval shape of communication diagram is very typical. If you've had any course with a textbook, you're going to see something like this with a communicator. They encode, they send the message via channel. The other person receives it, they decode it, and we're both senders and receivers, and so it's transactional. And this is by far the most new age version or new age looking version of this I have ever seen, with the people and like the ripples of water in the background. But then if you look closely, there's also there's the earth in the background, and I'm not sure if that's, if they're trying to say that there's worldview involved. I don't know what they're trying to say there, but I just think it's kind of a new age looking graphic. So we take the transactional model into normal definitions of communication, but now we're talking about intrapersonal communication. So what does the transactional model mean for us who study intrapersonal communication? So here we are. The first thing that I want to say is that because the transactional model is the widely accepted view, it means that some places accept intrapersonal communication as a real discipline of study, others don't. So here we go. Many scholars take the transactional model to mean that communication can only take place between two distinct organisms. thus making the study of intrapersonal communication a bit controversial. In fact, the truth of intrapersonal communication as a field of study is that it never really grew past what in the late 80s, early 90s would have been called a subdiscipline. There were a lot of people doing a lot of publishing on intrapersonal communication throughout the 80s and the early 1990s, but then it just kind of faded away. Lots of people in communication are so adherent to this idea of communication only being between two distinct organisms that intrapersonal communication is kind of the thing that all of us communication scholars know exists, but no one, I can't say no one. You're going to see a lot of people have written on it and cited it and have good citations for it. But it's just kind of that thing that we all know exists, but that we don't dive into very far. And so some of the source citations that you see from me in this class are going to be from the 1980s and the early 1990s, because it just kind of isn't it's not the robust subdiscipline or co-discipline, whatever word you want to use, like interpersonal or intercultural or organizational communication or small group communication. Intra kind of has that reputation. Okay, but even though it's been a little bit controversial, okay, there still are many scholars who take the transactional model as being able to incorporate communication that happens within an individual. It's important to do that because I think you know that is something that we all do. So, and I'm going to have to move myself so you can see this, okay? So for example, and this is how it works with the transactional model. When an individual is engaged in an internal dispute, should I do this or not? Or rationalization. I know I shouldn't buy a new car for the following reasons, but then again, there are these other reasons why I really should buy a new car. Or if you're invested in careful reasoning. So for lots of the intrapersonal scholars, there is room in the transactional model, and it works that way. So for us here at FRCC, what we're going to do is we are going to say that there is room in the transactional model for intrapersonal communication. And the reason why is because there are different views of communication, but especially because we are taking the view that you're always communicating, and especially because we're taking this idea that when we communicate, we're co-producing reality. And so I can create realities within myself, and that is going to be intrapersonal communication. So I am going to pull the transactional model through here, but I'm also going to continue to link us back to this idea that we are always producing reality, and the little r reality again, in our selves, in our self-concept, and that's very important to the way that we're going to be behaving in our everyday lives. So I'm actually going to stop the screencast right here, and then we'll move to the next one.